My name is Zahara Chaudhry. I am the moderator for the Artists and Designers panel, which is where all of you are at right now. I'm on central staff for PSN, and in the past, I've worked on Alluvia Magazine, which is a magazine that highlights the narratives of BIPOC environmental artists. And I also do photography and graphic design work on the side. And then I'm going to hand it over to whichever panelist wants to hop in next. And then we can kind of popcorn around.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Jacob Johns, he, him, his pronouns. I am a community support organizer with the Backbone campaign. What was prompt again?
Just introducing yourself, anything that aligns with that, and a synopsis of your work.
Yeah, totally. So I do community support organizing, which means that I'm like an independent contractor underneath the nonprofit status of a larger 501c3, and then I take those donations that pay for my cost of living and for large direct action type of events. I work intersectionally with environmentalism and social justice at this minutia that needs to happen in order for us to succeed. I don't really make a whole lot of money doing that. And so what I do is I'm an artist. I do art just about as much as I do organizing. I do mainly portrait work. And you see a lot of that bleed through where you need to have like this artful way to address activism to really convey a message that transcends words and really can grasp a lot of media from a lot of attention from media that you really don't have access to. So I think it's really important for us to think of new innovative ways, and a lot of times it takes an artistic talent to shift perspective and create this new paradigm that we're working in order to actually cause real change.
Great, that was amazing. Happy for anyone to jump in next.
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Paola Lopez Ramirez. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. I was born and raised in the Andes Mountains in South America, in what is currently known as Bogota, Colombia, in ancient ancestral lands of the Muisca people. I'm connecting from El Paso, Texas, what is currently known as El Paso, Texas, or the so-called U.S.-Mexico border, also a beautiful and complex region. My work, I'm primarily a mover. My training is in dance, performance. I'm a interdisciplinary dance maker, an improviser, and a mother. Being a mother has really, really shaped my work in a lot of ways. A big part of my work is embodied research, looking at the body as a site for decolonizing practices and direct action, both within and uh, without. Is that a word? And outside. Another big component is my social practice or community engaged making. I work with a lot of different kinds of communities in supporting people to reconnect with their innate creativity, supporting people to remember that we are interconnected and that we are part of um, a larger world, both human and more than human. And I have a very special commitment, or more than special, is just like intentional commitment that my work needs to be healing in its process and product. And so in anything that I do, whether it's making art making or teaching or organizing, it always needs to come from that place of love and kindness and compassion, and have the intention to heal both the people that participate in it and also the people that witness it. So it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you.
can go next. My name is Dio. I use she, they pronouns. I'm calling today from Minneapolis, so Dakota Territory. I grew up on the East Coast and I moved out here and found myself really involved in the movement to stop the Line 3 pipeline that's happening right now. And I've been doing art and graphic design for as long as I can remember being a person. And I really found a place for myself in this movement, contributing my art to help make posters, share the message, and sort of try and bring people into the movement, making it beautiful and accessible and inviting for people to join this fight. I do a lot of like DIY organizing, so amongst a bunch of different groups and with a lot of really incredible individuals. And I feel really honored to be doing so many of the things that I'm doing. I'm also a practicing graphic designer in some non-organizing spaces, so I have a little bit of experience with that too. And I'm really honored to be here with all of you and hearing about all of the wonderful things. I think that's all I have.
Awesome. I guess I'll go next. That makes sense. So hi everyone. My name is Orion Camaro. I use they, he, her pronouns, and I'm currently on Chochenyo Ohlone territory in the village of Huichin, otherwise known as Oakland, California. I am a visual storytelling educator and arts activist that really sees creativity as one of the major catalysts upon how we mobilize and activate people, not only towards inspiring them towards like action that goes beyond the image or the song or whatever that is, but being able to like channel and use creativity as a place to like activate people of all sorts of identities. A lot of my work has looked both like rapid response images that are created for campaigns, as well as just like deeper storytelling projects. Maybe as a sort of quick little visual gallery walk, this is an image that I've made. It's like an intricate mural that shows like social and environmental justice issues in California. And then in that same tone, I have a couple of like banners here. California Youth versus Big Oil. I do a lot of organizing work around like fossil fuel extraction and water issues here in the state. And some beautiful ones too. This one says towards climate justice. And this one, make a choice, fossil fuels are our future. But yeah, just generally, I like using the mediums of image and also songs, like thinking about creative interventions and how to like integrate campaign knowledge in the different like artworks or songs that could like kind of carry those messages in unanticipated places. So I'm just super excited to meet y'all and to be able to like talk shop, because I'm sure there's so much that everyone's holding and I'm just like stoked about it. So thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing. So I guess the first question for panelists is, I think this question is going to be a little bit different given the nature of art and how it intersects with climate justice organizing. But when did you decide to become an artist or a designer? Or was there a moment where you knew like this was the avenue of work you wanted to pursue? It could be in like a traditional context of like education or work in like the nonprofit organizing space, or it could be like something on your personal or cultural journey that pushed you to do the work that you're doing today. And anyone feel free to jump in.
I feel like I relate so much to Dio, just about like being an artist ever since I could remember. Like I think at 2 years old, when I was the youngest, is when my sister taught me how to draw a circle, and I used to be obsessed with the Goosebumps book series and just like all the cool covers, and I was just like, let me draw. I would actually waste a bunch of printer paper. My mom would be so mad. I just have drawings all over the place. But yeah, I think art for me has always been a super like imaginative practice. And I think that like, I think one thing that I'll just share before handing it off to someone else is, yeah, I feel like I've always been kind of innately an artist, but the moment that I realized that art could be used for change, I think was really, I just finished going to this like program called the California State Summer School for the Arts. And it was this like 4-week intensive where like I met young people from all over working on different like short films and dance and music and art and all this really cool stuff. It was at the campus of Cal Arts in LA. And I remember being super inspired by that, but then coming back to my hometown to go to community college, a lot of stuff had happened around like evictions and like foreclosure rates and just like really intense things in the city, like drug abuse and gang culture and all this sort of stuff. And I just felt like myself called to like use arts as a healing force for like young people as an outlet. And that led me eventually into environmental justice work and social justice work. But at the moment, it was really just about how does arts heal people through really like collective trauma in their communities. And so I realized that like by putting on these, I kind of put on these like DIY art shows and concerts, like connecting different people together. And we'd put these shows on and donate half the proceeds to a nonprofit or community cause, and then another half of them to produce events. And we did that for like 2 years, and it like sparked this whole like network of hometown creatives. And it made me realize like, wow, like creativity has such a cool role in like bringing people together, but then also being able to like, yeah, just like witness each other and witness the like ongoing questions and issues that we have in our lives. And just the power of that was really was super real for me. So that's kind of how I figured things out.
It's really cool to hear you say that. When I was in high school, I was in an art collective actually with Naomi, who's on this call, and we had a lot of friends who were in various bands, and so we started putting on shows. And then every year they like got bigger and bigger into like these small festivals. We like brought artists in, we would raise money for different organizations. And so that was definitely where I got my first experience like organizing and realizing like all it takes is like a dedicated group of people and an idea, and then the follow through of that to like actually be able to make something incredible happen. And then I think it was when I was first in college, I was doing some printmaking, and I was really, with printmaking, you have the capacity to make many copies of things. And I learned that that was an incredible tool to, one, like spread awareness, to give someone something that they would like keep with them for a while, especially as it relates to like a political message. And then finally, like as a tool for fundraising, because it's something that is pretty low cost to make many copies of, so you can raise a fair amount of money. And so once I started realizing that, I started doing sort of small campaigns using printmaking to fund different organizations as I was sort of learning about like my place in the world of activism and sort of like developing my beliefs. I was like making prints. And so that's what I've been doing a lot recently as a printmaker.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Jacob or Sandra, do you have thoughts on this question?
Pretty artistic. As a child, we used to draw all the time. My mom is a portrait artist, and so she would teach us a lot of different things. She would like teach classes on like how to draw on the right side of your brain, and like how to do figure drawing, and like how to draw the muscles, and like all the very specifics of that. But you know, we did just for fun. We had a bunch of like artsy type of people. When I got older, I went to the school for the arts. I did jazz, tap, ballet, and acrobatics. So I was a break dancer for a number of years. I did hair for 2 years. You know, it's always like trying to find different ways to express yourself. And then when you started doing a lot more activism, noticed like how whack some people's signs were, right? Like we can do better than this. Like we're here for this, do something better than this. Like if that's getting on the news, like we can do better better, represent movement better. And so feeling compelled to fill in those gaps, I think really called to me to do larger action art and bigger things like that. Now as it started to evolve more into, doing big banner stuff. We just did one recently at the Minnesota State Capitol. We put up a TP in front. I started doing video editing, doing a lot of 3D projection mapping onto buildings, onto three large structures, to really just amplify like we need to be innovative and different ways to fill in that gap for the 21st century, because everything that we've done before has not worked, because we're still fighting these fights. We're still doing these things. So we got to come up with something new. We got to fill in that gap, and we got to inspire others to step up to the plate and really move forward together with this beautiful marriage of art and activism.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And Sandra, any thoughts before we go to the next question?
I mean, I can just share that I think I'm the only non-visual artist in the panel. I started moving, dancing from a very young age, like I guess training, because we are always moving, so we are constantly in motion. Yeah, and I think that for me, the moment of realization was much more personal in the sense that, similar to Jacob, I did the ballet, modern jazz, that like this thing, and I loved it, but I was always also reminded why I was not, why I didn't have the perfect body. So there's a lot of body shaming around um, my bigger hips and my big thighs and like just not having a ballerina body. And encountering improvisation for me was that moment, realizing that there could be a way of inviting people to move that could actually honor their bodies and not try to fit them into a mold, and how liberating that was for me. And understanding that the way that it deepened my connection to my own body, how that helped me reconnect to land and to this idea of interconnectedness with more than human nature. I truly believe that that is a place of action that is often overlooked, because I think that in addition to advocating for policy change and working to do those big changes, we also need to help people reconnect, because unless people remember that they're part of this world, we're it's just kind of like putting band-aids. We're just going to keep coming back. And um, so that's how I see, how improvisation has led me to the work that I'm doing, of really helping people find that reconnection.
Yeah. Thank you all for sharing. It's really cool to hear those insights of what started your different journeys. And I know like everyone starts from a different place, and it's really cool to hear the range of that. Next, I invite you all to share, if you're comfortable, something about your work that brings you joy, and also a challenge that you have faced. And you can answer challenge first or joy first, whichever one you would like to start with. And anyone feel free to jump in and take a few seconds to think about it.
So personally, I like to get paid. That's what brings me joy. Like for real, like everybody talks. Oh well, this should be your expression and all this stuff. It's like no, I need to eat. Like straight up. Like if I like to get paid. Like if you're gonna pay me my worth too. I need to pay rent, right? Like that's a real thing. As we start working towards that, and it's like good. It has to be great because you need to get paid. And if you're not getting paid and you're not selling your stuff, then like you got to step it up. So I think I do a lot of commission work, a lot of portrait work, and some of the challenges that I find people give low resolution pictures, and they're just you do that work with this, and I'm like, I mean, I can try like straight up like I'll do my best, but you got to give me something good, man. So it's a lot of like guessing, fill people out, or some, oh, I have this idea for this thing, and I don't really know what it is. It's like kind of like this thing, and so you're like trying to like facilitate this image out of their mind and bring it into the real life. And I find it very difficult to do things like this. You know, it's about connecting the dots. We find that same space within like organizing, but there's all this potential to linking all of these things together to create this minutia of one force that we can call the movement. And it's up to us as artists and as organizers to bring those pieces together and connect them, to make them something physical and make them something beautiful and make them something that has never been made before.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And I think everyone who works in creative spaces can agree that we love to be paid.
Yeah, I kind of want to expand on that a little bit too, just to kind of like center in on like what creatives, the sort of magic that creative practice does is like it sort of paves way for new worlds or new ways of thinking. Sorry to be super intersensory, but I have a painting right here I want to share. Um, Here, this painting's talking about sort of multiple issues, like there are chains and barbed wire that's wrapping around the tree and like constricting cocoons, and those cocoons are meant to represent youth. And then the youth that are able to grow are turning into butterflies that are morphing into books. That then these books emerge other youth that are trying to liberate the youth of the cocoons. We made this painting for a campaign for Californians for Justice. They were working on a schools and communities first campaign to basically get like some of the top earning corporations to pay property taxes that would go towards funds for schools. And yeah, like I guess one thing that gives me joy is like trying to figure out how to express in unique ways like the world that we want to see, and how do we yeah, inspire people to see that it's possible. I think that oftentimes like the role of creatives are really kind of radical and visionary ones that like are really critical, but because we live in a world of visual stimuli, it's oftentimes like the like value is not quite placed there. So just to like expand on what Jacob was saying, just like how do people really see the value of like art as a healing practice, like even to talk like to like what Sandra was saying. um and then another random thing, sorry for just like walking you through all these images, whatever. But here I made this mural with a bunch of friends that says we are opening a portal through time and space to wellness, and we just like painted this huge mural of like different custom stars and like a portal opening in our living room. And honestly, this was like such a self-care painting. So all of us in this house like just do like wild organizing work, and it's really heavy and intense at times. But like, so just like even too, just like visual medicine is a real thing. Like, you know, like how do we aesthetically create the conditions that we want to see? Or even, you know, you look at like say a mantra that you write that is like in your mirror, like nestled in your mirror every day, like those things really matter. And I think they help to like build the conditions for yourself to like feel well. And so that's something that feels good to me, like that gives me joy, is the fact that art is visual medicine. Even if it's not paintings, if it's dancing, if it's like, you know, making music, like that stuff is like so critical and such a foundation of why we love life, or what makes life worth living. um and a challenge, I think the challenge is, yeah, um I think striking the balance between creative practice as a form of inner healing, and then creative practice as a form of campaign advocacy, and trying to find the balance between those worlds, because campaign advocacy and creativity, like we need creativity in those worlds. But oftentimes I've been in a sort of pattern of like being super focused on movement artwork, and that just like kind of be taking a really heavy toll on me if I'm not able to express like stuff that is just about joy and exploration and like fun and life, and just like finding the toggling between those worlds, because I like love them both and I don't want either of them to go away. But like how the balance gets met is a big challenge.
Definitely. I had a really good conversation with a friend of mine who's a visual artist as well about like, especially as like BIPOC folks or folks from marginalized communities, like the white art world tends to only accept you if you make work based on like identity and trauma and kind of serves that purpose. And like, especially folks in marginalized communities don't always get heralded for work that makes them happy and just provides like self-fulfillment as white artists often do all the time. So definitely resonate with that. Thank you for sharing. Dio or Sandra, feel free to jump in.
Sandra, did you come off mute a bit earlier? Did you have something to add?
I was just going to share. I was just going to answer the question. Nothing in particular. You know, my something that brings me joy is just to move in a relationship, whether it's to another human being or whether it's to land. It just brings me a lot of joy to move with other people, and I think that that's joy in my work is a form of resistance and a form of uh, liberation. And, you know, dance has been used in our history as a species around the world for thousands of years as, you know, as a way to um, to protest, to liberate, to resist. And I think that one of the big reasons why is because when we move, we feel pleasure, we feel joy, and we get to, especially when, you know, specifically for bodies that are otherwise not seen as whole in our society, it's a really big way of saying with your whole body loudly that you're alive and that you're here and that you're enjoying your whole self. Um, so perhaps that I'll stop there. I just wanted to share that.
That's really beautiful. I think I definitely resonate with a lot of what Orion was saying earlier about finding that balance between like doing art for movement and doing art for self. And I feel like I'm definitely completely way off balance right now in the movement world and trying to sort of come back to doing art for myself, which it feels like it's been like maybe a year since I've like really like taken that time to do a project entirely for me. So that's definitely my challenge, is because of just the nature of what I've been doing recently. There's so much urgency around everything because the Line 3 fight is happening every single day and it like needs to be stopped now. And so both having the like personal urgency to respond to that through art, and then also I have a really hard time in general saying no to projects, but especially like when it's in these movement spaces that I like believe in with my entire being. If someone needs something, like, of course I want to make that the priority. And so I don't feel like I've done a very good job of finding that balance. And yeah, I've been working a little bit trying to sort of build a network of artists so that we can sort of share those asks. But a lot of the times, like things just, people are like, hey, I need this like yesterday. Like, please, like get me this in 24 hours. And yeah, I just feel like I'm playing a lot of catch up here. But definitely there's a lot of joy. I've definitely got a lot of joy in what I do. And anytime I see something that I helped create or like a design of mine that's being used on the front lines of the fight, so in direct actions, like there, I just feel so like unspeakably honored to be a part of such an important movement in the way that like my skills and my hands are able to contribute.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. For the next question, I guess if y'all could share like a moment or a feeling that was very defining in your career or your journey, what it felt like and like what it was. And again, feel free to think about this and anyone can jump in at any time.
I can share. I think, I touched on one of those moments before when I talked about, encountering improvisation as a way of, expression and movement making and practice. But I also, just because I just recently went through it, just the becoming a mother has been quite a defining moment in my life. Especially I think in relationship to this movement, because it makes everything so much more palpable in terms of the future. And it just, I don't know, like, I don't know how many people in this call are parents, but it just breaks you open in a way that I just never expected. I for a long time was in the no baby camp, and then it has really it has really just transformed me in so many ways. And I think it's because also being a body-based artist, and gestating, carrying a child, and then going through labor and childbirth, and then breastfeeding and carrying a baby, that just yeah it I think that it's a reflection of how in my work there's really no separation between life and work. Like my work, I see the way that I live my life is part of my activism and part of my art work, and vice versa. And so I think that becoming a mom has made that so much more heightened, like so much more um, alive and palpable. So I think that yeah, this is a way to share also that as part of my practice, that is just very, very much hand in hand with my life and just living and being in this world.
So there was a, I got a scholarship to go to hair school after doing, after being in prison for some time for assaulting a police officer. And I got a full ride scholarship to go to hair school, right? And so I had, my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. I just had a baby. And so I was doing art, I was doing paintings, all this stuff, but I had a degree in doing hair. And so I was doing hair at this low income housing facility and doing all the residents' hair in exchange for cheap rent, right? And so I was trying to get people to come in because I had a baby, I had to do all these things. And so I got a booth at the powwow, and I was like cutting people's hair. And then just to like get people out there. So I like had this chair out in the powwow, and I'm doing cutting people's hair. And I was like, I'll just take donations, and we're gonna donate it back to the powwow fund, right? So that we can the powwow, they had to pay for this park or whatever. And so I'm out here, I'm doing hair, I'm cutting hair for like crazy. And people were donating bullshit. Like I should have had like a suggested donation thing, right? Because it was all like fistful of pennies or whatever. And like I was a good hairstylist. But I also had a bunch of paintings up there. And then I was also doing screen printing. So I was like doing hair, and then like I would sell t-shirts, I'd run back and run some prints, cut some hair, and I would get pennies. And I was doing all this, but I had paintings up. And I sold one of them. I sold one for like, I don't know, it was like $100 or something. And then this lady came by and she's like, "Hey, listen, I really like your art. Would you be interested in having a solo show at the University of Washington in Seattle?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm good." No, just joking. So she's like, "Yo, for real, we can do this. I'll give you a year to prepare. We'll fly you out, or we'll pay for all this stuff to go through." So for a full year, like I knew that I had this solo art show happening at the University of Washington, the School of Social Justice. And so I like for a full year, I made so much stuff. And I like word up just straight put all of this. I made rattles, I made all this stuff, did all these different things. I made paintings, drawings, I had all this stuff. And plus I had like a bunch of stuff that I had done when I was in prison. So like it was all like super rad. And then I finally like had done something with my life. It was back in 2012. So I was like, oh man, this is like amazing. And I had like all this stuff. It was like this big epiphany of stuff, and things only got better from that point on. And it was like here I am barefoot in the park cutting hair for pennies and running screen prints But it turned into like all this other stuff. And, you know, it was like a defining moment as an artist for myself, because it was just like all this stuff happening that became something else. And it was a beautiful moment.
That sounds really intense, but also super fun and like an experience that can't be really replicated anywhere else. And I love hearing like just the differences in people's stories that can't be found in like the nonprofit space or like art school or like these like traditional spaces sometimes. So thank you for sharing, Jacob. Happy for anyone to hop in next.
I guess I'll go next. um, I'm wondering if it's okay to share screen. Because what I want to share in terms of like a sort of pivotal or transformative moment was a project that I used to be kind of like a fan of, but then ended up like meeting folks and like learning the process and then being able to do it for my own community. Um,
Yeah.
and so the context, oh yay, I can do it. Cool.
Yeah, I just made you co-host.
Awesome. So I'll tell the story first and then I'll share. So the context is I used to be a really deep fan of the Beehive Design Collective. I don't know if anyone knows, but they're an arts activist group based out of Maine, but they do a lot of work about resisting corporate globalization and talking about the intricacies of the climate crisis. And so I was just such a deep fan of them. And then I went to this arts activism conference in Maine and like that they hosted, and I like met them in person. And I was like, oh my gosh, like y'all, like we need to create a graphic about California and the issues that are going on here. Like it's intense. Like, and it was so cool because I was able to build a relationship and then ended up joining the collective and have been a member for a handful of years now. But one of the things that I feel like was a really pivotal transformative moment was just like kind of being in this sort of like multi-year process of like asking illustrators and organizers that were part of these graphics campaigns like what it took to create their work. And we finished one. In 2018, we completed a graphic about California and all of the social environmental issues that are going on. And for me, it was just like such a like exciting experience of being able to understand how to like commit like to like what feels like a really intense like research project and like community participatory input project, and like create a sort of artifact of like the world that we want to build and like name all the different strands of issues that you know, I think that we feel really like hard here in California. So I wanted to share the graphic just so that y'all could see kind of what we did. Here it is. It's just like super intense and like involved many different hands to work on this. So it was a mixture of educators, organizers, and artists and activists. But yeah, it touches base on like a number of issues, like from indigenous sovereignty and fossil fuel extraction to like the comparisons between the greed of the gold rush and the tech boom to like gentrification and houselessness and water privatization, wildfires, migrant farm workers justice movements, and like digital distractions and stuff, and social media narcissism. So all sorts of things, but it was cool because it was really intense to like take in these issues. Like this was like a graphic that had like massive like amounts of like napkin sketches and like all these drawings and like different concepts and just like all this stuff, and it was super overwhelming, but we got it completed and I don't know, I was stoked. So oh my gosh, I had such like what's it called, postpartum. As soon as the graphic was done, I like went into like a severe depression for a year. But that's what happens, I guess.
No, that's so incredible. It's really cool to hear that you did that. I don't know if I can say I've been following the Beehive Collective, but I did like stumble upon them a few years ago, and then we've had some of their pieces hanging in my house at home. I think now my brother has them, but yeah, they like the work that you all have created is so cool. And thank you for sharing that piece. It was amazing. I've been so distracted listening to all of your incredible stories that I don't have a very good one of my own. But I will just say, like, getting involved in a number of different like arts communities, for me specifically in the Twin Cities, but especially like intergenerational art spaces where there's just a community of people coming together, making stuff around a shared, like it's usually like one day, so either an action or a parade or a play, just those kinds of spaces where everyone is just doing what they know how to do. Some people are like feeding the whole group, some people are planning, some people are just executing. And I just feeling a part of that community has really just totally shifted my like belief in the types of art spaces that like I want to be in. And yeah, I don't know, very, very powerful and incredible.
Awesome. Anyone else would like to share? I think we will. Yeah. Great. And I guess we can move on to the quick last question of the night before we open it up to audience questions. What do you wish you had known about being an artist or a designer, um, I guess, before you started your career or earlier on in your journey that you can share with folks now?
I don't know if it's necessarily something that I wish I would have known earlier. I mean, I guess it would have been helpful, but I think that everything comes at its time. So it's not necessarily, I feel like framing it as something that I wish I would have known. Yeah, kind of places me in a place of regret, which I just don't find helpful. But I think something that has been really valuable to recognize and realize is that there's no such thing as neutrality in artwork. I mean, in anything in life, but I think as an artist, it's been really helpful to recognize and see that everything that I do either upholds systems of power or dismantles them. Like there's no in between. Either my choices are to maintain the status quo by the choices of how I put on a performance or how I make work or how I teach, or I'm taking steps towards dismantling those systems. So I think that awareness has been, it took a long time for it to develop within myself, for a lot of reasons. And I think that it's been really useful for me both to just kind of own up when I just, choose to uphold a system just because it's easier at that moment and that's just what I need to do, but just to be cognizant that I am doing that. And at the same time, just small choices, or I don't want to say small choices, but choices like, a costume or a place where I choose to put a work, or who I decide to work with, how I cast a piece, or how, like any and all of these decisions as an artist that I make, they will always have an impact. Like there's no such thing as like, oh, it's just like a beat. No, like it either will continue helping me in that path that I'm on to dismantle what I want to dismantle, or it will reinforce what's already in place.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And if anyone else wants to jump in, okay, great.
um, I think for me, one thing that I would want to tell myself when I was younger in the start of this work is you can do everything you want to do one at a time, but you can't do everything at once. And because I think for me, and then the other piece I'll pair that with too is like to be always in a space of of experimental energy and play, and to not take things so seriously, even when using your art to like speak about serious things. mainly because I think our our creative practices are like really personal and like really intimate to us. And so when we're using it in service of the cause, it's easy for our heartstrings to be activated and like to like stress about all the yeah, the real time issues that we're trying to honor, and to really feel the feel the pain or feel the context of whatever we're trying to advocate for. And I welcome that, but I also know that for me, I think especially as an arts activist, moving through campaign to campaign or image to image or project to project, is that um, all that emotional baggage, unless like regulated and processed healthily, can like lead to like, yeah, just heavy burnout and depression. You know, and artists are innately emotional creatures. So it's just like being able to pick up on those things. There's a sort of fine line to have around, yeah, being able to like nurture others from a full cup. And I think that was something that I really wish I knew before. And also too, like as a creative, I'm just like always so stoked about versatility in my practice, and just like how like, yeah, I think oftentimes too our capacity could be limited by like having like an appetite for like more than we can chew. So just like remembering like that, like taking things a step at a time, or like giving yourself the sort of like standard of patience or compassion inside of yourself when working on projects is really important, because before you know it, you'll have like a portfolio of really powerful work if you just follow your heart piece by piece, project by project, instead of thinking like, oh, I have to do something super grandiose, or like my artwork has to like tangibly change the like issue. Like, I don't know, it's hard. But that's what I would say.
Great. Thank you for sharing.
I'm going to mimic what San just said and shift it to something that's valuable rather than something that I regret. And this is definitely advice to people that haven't been like doing a ton of art in community, but a lot of times either in activist spaces or in education spaces, or really most places, like a lot of people who aren't artists like don't know what they need until you show them an example, and then they're like, oh, that's like exactly what we've been missing. And so a lot of the times, like, they're not going to ask for that. They're not going to like ask for like an incredible banner. They're not going to ask for like an illustrated poster. They're not going to ask for like a nice easy to read version of whatever they're dealing with. And so my tactic for that has been to, when I encounter some of these issues in organizations that I'm working with, movements that I'm a part of, or like my school classes, to just make it. Like, they're not going to ask for it, so just go ahead and give it a shot. And then usually from there, people are actually able to sort of have that conversation about like, oh, I see what you've done with images, and here's how it can relate to whatever we're working on. And yeah, has been my experience with working with non-artists in a way to sort of celebrate information and make information accessible in a way that is missing from a lot of the world today.
I would like to reach out to myself in the past and be like, don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid to fuck up a big canvas. Like, just do it. And then if you do, like, just move on with your life. Like, don't sweat it. Don't try to paint over it. Just like throw it in the corner, move on, and go bigger. Go bigger, and don't worry about it. Don't worry about imperfections or any of this stuff. Like, go big and be brave and make loud. You want to make a statement? Do it in a very dramatic fashion that is visually appeasing and just makes everyone around you feel something in a bright way that shines light into their dark hearts, right? Like, we want this, and don't be afraid to, like, if you spend like 100, like I was like that, right? Like, I was like, oh, okay, so I got $20, I'm gonna go buy a canvas or whatever. And I was, okay, this is the canvas. I was like, oh, and I'm like, you're putting all that energy into your stuff. Like, if you do it carefree and you go big, and you're like, if you mess up, that's fine. But if you do great, you're like, that was easy, and I can slam dunk this for forever. So like, don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to waste money. Don't be afraid to get paint all over yourself and ruin all of your clothes. Like for real, go big and go louder. And if you mess up, go bigger again. Like go bigger and see, think about other things that you can do to make a spectacle for real.
Great. Thank you for sharing, everyone. And with 5 minutes left, I'm going to invite the audience to jump in. Feel free to come off mute because we have a really small group, and ask the panelists anything that's been on your mind. I think there's a question in the chat. I'll read it out for everyone. Other than create visual artwork or art for storytelling in the space of activism, what is some other work that a designer could engage in that involves their passion for climate justice? I'm a design graduate, and I've been really grappling with the fact that so much of design practice and education doesn't concern itself with climate justice or social justice in general, and would love to hear some thoughts.
Going off something that Sandra said earlier too about how part of it is policy and part of it is having like building people's reconnection or making the space for people to like reconnect with ways of life that maybe have like the environment and ways of life that have been sort of pushed out by the modern age that we're living in. I think using art to sort of facilitate sort of personal relationships with space and place and the environment and other people is also part of the same work in a way that doesn't often get put on the same, it doesn't often get seen as part of these larger movements, but absolutely is.
I would also say just seeing your skill set as an ingredient with other folks that could help support like creating something that's larger than the sum of its parts. So if you have design work, like how do you like, and I think it really all, for me, I feel like it all comes down to relationships as well. So it's like meeting that a climate justice like organizer that like maybe needs some support, like in visibility that you could use your design skills for. I don't know if you mean like website design, but I know that oftentimes there's a lot of, I mean, I'm super stoked on all the folks that have websites here, but I know that there's some climate justice arts activists out there that don't quite have a following, but don't have a website, but are like throwing down. So just like finding folks to support that line with your values or vision, and also to just like thinking about aside from like arts advocacy things, like just yeah, I think I would just mirror what Dia was just saying about just like how your skill set could be used in service of like facilitating connections between like communities or getting people to like evaluate, understand their sense of place. Yeah, there's so much of a like moving and growing and evolving visual stimuli culture with like the culture of Instagram and just like, and I know that like there's a lot of potential to tap in there.
Amazing. And last question, if folks want to offer like a small tidbit response. Naomi asked, how has COVID-19 pandemic impacted your practice as activists, artists, and what advice do you have to keep making art for movements when in isolation? And after this, it can be really short responsives and we can close out.
So COVID-19 was a blessing. Like I made so much money since people been locked down staring at their social media. I came up, I was like, what? I got a commission like a couple months ago for 10 G's, y'all. Fucking 10 G's for one painting. And I'm like, please, can you all can we all just like continue to follow the Instagram, continue to follow the Facebook, like tell all of your friends. Like it was blessing. Like every single native artist that I know, it's like been selling stuff. Like I bought some, I got my ears pierced just to buy earrings from somebody, like for real. Cause like we ain't got shit to do. Like we're stuck here staring at these things. So we want a piece of this. We want a piece of this, this amazing thing out there. You know, I think it's really helped me a lot. But it's also, we've had to become innovative. Like, you know, we had to overcome things. I would do paintings. I did a couple of paintings. I shipped out to Minnesota, shipped out to GNU. I shipped some stuff out to the KXL pipeline stuff. We did banner drops as well. I shipped a painting out to the state capitol Olympiads coming. They went up today. Jeff Bezos, the devil, right? But we thinking about different ways that we can still be there and still contribute without actually like being there in the space by contributing from artistic abilities. You can see a lot of the cool stuff here. I'm gonna hop in some of the socials. You can check them out and see what I'm talking about. But please stay healthy. I'm not trying to wish the world another pandemic, but please, if you're not on socials, I know what's your face is not, but if you are, like, let's get some socials going, because I love to follow all of you. You all sound amazing. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we're gonna close out there. If any of the panelists have any closing words, feel free to jump in really quickly. But if not, yeah, thank you. Or
Thank you.
Cedra, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for the invitation, for sharing space, and for the work you do, mostly.
It's really wonderful to hear from all of you. Very inspiring. Thank you so much.
So honored. Thank you for letting us share our stories, and excited to continue the conversation and keep creating, keep making beautiful things. We need it in this world.
Great. And yeah, thank you to all the panelists for speaking today and the audience for participating and showing up. This was definitely inspiring, and I feel reinvigorated in my work too. So that was really cool. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evenings and the rest of the convergence.